Imagine an island more than mysterious, because very, very sacred for the ancient Egyptians, and we will see why. Located in the heart of the Nile on the border between the Lower Egypt and the Upper Egypt, Nubia in ancient times, imagine that this island was totally forbidden except for the priests. Imagine that noise was totally forbidden approaching it. Only whisperings were allowed. Imagine an island still forbidden today, but I was lucky enough to go in it some time ago. An island with impressive but enigmatic, impenetrable content, as we will see. Before going to some details, the islands I'm going to talk to you about today, including the mysterious one that's going to be our main topic, are all between the old Aswan Dam in the north and the Big Dam in the south. Our mysterious and very sacred island is at the back of the one well known to the tourists, at the back of the Temple of Philae, with its famous Temple of Isis. This Temple of Philae is today on the island of Agilkia, no more on the original island of Philae, which was submerged by the water during the finalization of the Great Dam of Aswan, and after then an international campaign of the UNESCO dismantled stone by stone the Temple of Philae and repositioned it on the island of Agilkia, where you can see it and visit it today. The original island of Philae is now under the water, and its fortification in the past controlled the access to the ancient Upper Egypt, Nubia, and is a few meters east of our mysterious island, and the island of Agilkia is just a few meters north of our island. So our very sacred island is today between Philae and Agilkia, a bit like between the past and the future. First, look and imagine the islands surrounding our mysterious island to understand it well. Philae in the east, whose name in ancient Egyptian was Yat Rak, the distant place, was known in the old era as the island of the time of Ra, the first earth that emerged from the noon to the creation of the world. Agilkia to the north, on which we rebuilt the Temple of Isis, Aset, the great temple in Heka, in magic. In the southwest of our island, the big island of El Haissa, where were buried the priests of Philae, buried in tombs dug in the rock, so that their souls always watch as guardians in the heart of the Nile. To the north again of our island, the island of Konosso, where through the ages were engraved the names of pharaohs and notables, so it was important that their names are there with offerings. So we can see the incredible importance of the situation of our island, which is called the island of Gigal. Gigal is well in the heart of the Nile and in the heart of an extremely sacred place. The island of Gigal, where he sleeps, formerly called Senem, was sacred to the ancient Egyptian because it was said that Osiris was buried there according to certain texts, or at least concealed a part of the body of Osiris there, his left leg, according to other texts, because there are 16 places in Egypt where parts of the body of Osiris are known to be buried according to ancient texts. only this place is much more particular than that. We know that it also concealed a temple of Osiris with the Num triad, Satet and Uket, also undoubtedly a temple of Thoth, which is rare together. Thoth bore the titles of the great and splendid nature of Senembige, and that of the one who pacified the island of the flames, which is a reference to Sekhmet. I explain this island of flames in my masterclass that will start only in January. So, Thoth was there also very important. There are the inscriptions near the temple of Philae on the door of Hadrian, describing the rites of the priests of Bigae and explaining that to hunt, fish, or to make musical noise was totally forbidden while chosen priests went on Bigae. Seneca and Lucan in their texts also mentioned the prohibition of access to the island except for some chosen priests for rites. A little later the island was also called Abaton, which means inaccessible, and those who got the right to go on it had to whisper and never raise their voice. But what decided me to try everything to be able to go there is something else. The priests said that in this island was the bottomless source of the Nile, because for them it is in Bigae that half of the Nile arises to go north and the other half go south. I know it sounds strange, but the ancient Egyptians never said nonsense, and if they said there was a source there, it might exist, and probably this one is mixing itself with the waters of the Big Nile, which would accredit moreover the contrary and violent turmoil being specifically around Bigae. But they also said that the nature Hapi, the god of the Nile, lived there in a big grotto at Bigae, its entrance being guarded by a great snake, and that the rising and falling waters of the Nile were connected to the death and rebirth of Osiris. So, at this point, I had to know more, and I had to put my feet on this island. About the island of Bigae, we know from documents that there are still there a stone pier with steps, some brick ruins, the ruins of a temple with some columns, and an ark with Ptolemy IX in front of Osiris, Isis, and Num, an altar of Ptolemy III, and we know that there were also statues of Thutmose III and Amenophis II. I was then on the island of Agilkia some time ago in front of the temple of Philae, and I had to find an immediate solution to obtain the permit to go on the neighboring island of Bigae. While it was completely inaccessible because of its proximity to the Aswan Dam, a prohibited military zone, and that going through the usual channel of official requests will take weeks or even months and would end probably with a refusal. So I had to find something, be convincing enough to convince the officials on the spot. First, I will have to convince of my need, motivation absolute, to go with verifiable reasons. Second, I will have to convince also of my innocuity, that is to say, to reassure, to give confidence that I was not going to make depredations, for example, etc. For the first thing, I did not see myself saying that I just wanted to go to just put my foot on this secret land and to look if there was good trace of the possible entrance of a cave, because it was not enough convincing. But I already knew that for number one, it was necessary that I propose a very short time of visit, not to be whipped by a refusal. Why but by a refusal? For the second thing, I should give references, names of Egyptian people who know me and support me and who they could call. For that, I had no problems. With a friend, I appreciate the officers who spoke under the sun at the end of the day, and interrupted them kindly without knowing yet what pretext I was going to take to make my request. When my eyes fell on a picture that had just appeared on the screen of my mobile, it was the page of a search engine, and the picture, the painting representing the island, the ancient island of Philae from David Roberts' Gigal Island painting. As soon as I saw it, the inspiration came to me. I said that I wanted to go to Gigal to take a picture of Philae's temple on Agilcat today, to be able to see the difference with the position of the past. Maybe because I was expressing myself in Arabic Egyptian without accent, and I insisted with a lot of strength for a long time, but I got the permit, but only for half an hour, and they ordered a boatman to drive me immediately. When the boatman knew where I was going, at 3 minutes from the boat on the island of Gigal, he looked terrified. He whispered that it was very, very dangerous, and that the island was full of snakes, that it was forbidden, etc. He was shaking like a leaf and no longer dared look at me in the eyes when I told loud that snakes do not scare me. The friend stayed on board as he landed at full speed on Gigal at the foot of a rocky wall without wanting to cross my eyes. I had only 20 minutes to climb the rocks to see what was on the other side, and then down, and then return by boat to the temple of Philae. The difficulty was that he had not deposited me at the old landing stage, but just at the foot of this pile of big rocks. I did not have the right shoes nor the good outfit. It was very hot, but I forgot all this because I was going to be and to brace and on this sacred land. I climbed on the rocky ground without hearing the escape of snakes in the bushes on each side of me. I was moving fast, despite the difficulty, because the time was running out. Once arrived at the top, I was very surprised at the sight. Dozens of antennas and old military casemates, more or less in ruins, in the hollow at the bottom of the wall, the rock pile. All this was in an arc, as in the hollow of a volcano mouth. I went down a little, but not until down completely, because time was passing quickly and I had to turn back. Because of the sun also beginning to fall. The goal was to find a wet place in all this draw, what I found through reeds. There, under a certain rock, and I just had time to glimpse a possible entry below. That was enough. For the first time, it confirmed me that a cave entrance did exist, and I was very moved to have stepped in my mystical place. I left quickly, the boatman was about to leave without me when I arrived, and still did not want to meet my eyes. I learned later by the friend who stayed on board that he was terrified by me and told her that I had to be a supernatural being for having been able to go up to this place, which is not the old landing stage, without any trouble. I learned later that the island was infested with snakes, the reason why the soldiers had to leave from the island because of a lot of deadly bites. I was told about flying snakes and many legends, but when I spoke to a professor on the shore, he explained to me that the legend probably came from the fact that these snakes made unbelievable leaps from rocks to rock, a species that really existed. Biologists at Virginia Tech University have researched and found it. There are 5 species of snakes in the tropical forest of Southeast Asia, belonging to the genus Chrysopelea. They are simply able to fly. According to these researchers, snakes combine this physical transformation with movements of contortions and ripples to fly in the air. Maybe descendants of the great snake that resided in Gigal's underground cave with the Nile nature. And here is the beginning of a mysterious adventure, another one in our wonderful Egypt. And of course, I will report to you more in the future. This was Gigal from Egypt.